You might be in your career right now and you're asking yourself and wondering what's next for me. Whether you're an employee or a leader in a company, or maybe even your own business owner, and you're trying to decide what's in the future of my business. Do I want to continue to grow it over the course of 20, 30 years? Do I want to eventually sell this business? Do I want to create a new product line? And if you're in a company, maybe you're asking, do I want to move up into leadership? Do I want to become even part of the executive team? Do I want to be a part of selling this company that I'm working for? No matter where you are and what stage you're in, this conversation today is going to be for you. We're going to talk about Terry Nawrot's journey from employee to leader on an executive team to then helping to sell off that business and move into her own company, which is called Insight Path. We're going to talk about Terry's journey, how it relates to you, and believe me, it will absolutely relate to you. Now, before I introduce you to Terry, you know the fee for the show. We don't show you any ads. We don't have any sponsors. The only thing that we ask you is to continue being awesome and to continue being the number one reason we've grown the way that we have this past year, which is because you share the show. You share it with one person only when you take away a piece of information or advice or insights that have helped you in your personal life or your business. And I can guarantee you're going to take some of those things away today. So without further ado, let's talk to Terry Nawrot about her journey from employee to leadership to business owner. And for those who don't know Terry, Terry is the co-founder and CEO of Insight Path and the co-owner of Railroad 19, a custom software development company located in Saratoga Springs, New York, which is like 15 minutes from me. Terry was formerly the COO of Informs, an email marketing company that she joined in 2005 and sold to Higher Logic in 2017. A long run with that company. Terry led sales, marketing, product management, customer service, and operations teams. So Terry's pretty much done it all. And I'm really excited to talk to her. Terry, it is a pleasure to have you on the Be Better broadcast. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I remember when we met through Christine Smith, and we met because Christine always tries to introduce me to awesome people, and you were one of the first people she wanted to. But she also said, we need to use Terry's product Video Request for what we're doing with a company that we're doing work with. And I said, oh, tell me about this product. And she did, and it was incredible. And we hopped on that call to talk about that. But I mean, that was like 10% of the call. The other 90% was me learning about you and your journey. And I was like, I didn't expect this, but we have to have Terry come on the call to talk about her journey. So I'm glad we made it happen. That was several months ago. And I'm curious, Terry. So in 2005, when you started working with Informs, you were an employee for them, correct?
Right.
Did you have like the whole map planned out? Like, did you know, okay, I'm going to join this company. I want to become a leader in this company. I want to be a part of the sell and the sale of this company. And then I want to start my own business. Like, did you have it all planned out? Like, what did that look like for you?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I was in my early 30s. I think the biggest thing was I was driving, almost an hour one way to work. And, I was actually using Informs, the product at my previous company. And an opportunity presented itself to live in Saratoga and work in Saratoga. And so that's really what brought me to Inform. So, you don't think that far ahead, of course.
Did you because it's pretty unique to be working in an email marketing company in 2005, because that's like, I was in fifth grade at that time. And I say that for the reason of saying, like, it was new technology. Like email was new. Like, we still had AIM Messenger and all that stuff. And like, what was it like working for an internet company almost at the very inception of what we know as the internet and email marketing was? Like, was that like an exciting opportunity? What led you to that opportunity? I know you used the product, but what enticed you to join?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it was a lot about the love of the product and what it could do. I really just, the technology and where it was going, really was the big force behind me making that move. And I supported at my previous company, I supported a group of partners. In this position, I was going to be supporting a bunch of customers and teaching them how to use the product. And that just was enticing for me and something that I thought would be fun. And it was also a small company, startup. And that was another area where I felt was interesting. And so, I thought that there could be opportunity for me. And so that was why I really, thought this was a good position for me.
Yeah, there was certainly opportunity. And
Hmm.
and there's one thing I feel like there's opportunity in most ventures.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of people out there listening right now who they might even be in a job that they don't love.
Hmm.
But you can either look at what you don't love, and you can also look at what opportunity do you have in this current role? Like, if you did give it your all and you showed up every day, you got there on time as an employee, because that's what you were when you started. You didn't get brought
Hmm.
immediately onto the executive team.
Right.
I would anticipate and guess that you showed up every single day with an excitement to do your best. And
Hmm.
I would anticipate that there was part of what you did that you necessarily didn't love, but you did it because it was part of the role that you were in. And by you
Hmm.
doing that, it's helped to lead you to where you are in the first place. Would I be right in saying that?
Absolutely. And, I think one of the things that also helped me was that um, I would seek out an answer that I didn't know. There was so many questions that would come up, and if I didn't know it, I would find out, and I would also, if I saw a problem, think about how I could solve it. And I think that was what sort of opened the eyes of our CEO at the time for seeing what potential I had, because it was a startup. So there was a lot of things that I kept saying, I think we could do this differently, or I think this process would work better. And I think that's taking the initiative is something that I think is so important when you're going into a position where you have that opportunity.
Yeah, and you didn't have a title at that point. Like, you were just looking to help make the business better by
Hmm.
things that you saw, ways that you could make it better. So, I mean, people listening right now, how can you help to make your department better? If you
Hmm.
do work for a startup, which I've never worked for a startup, I've always worked for, not the largest companies, but a company with over 300 employees. And how many, if you had to guess, or maybe how many employees did Informs have when you started with them in 2005?
Yeah, at the time we might have had maybe eight or
Wow.
nine. Hmm.
Yeah.
Small. It was small. Hmm.
And tons of opportunity for you to carve your own path there. And,
Right.
and it's the same for anyone. So, like, how can you listening carve your own path in the opportunity that you have right now? And the biggest thing that stands out to me with what you're saying is you didn't say, oh, when I'm in a position of leadership, that's when I'm going to put my foot forward.
Right.
That's when I'm going to start seeking these answers. That's when I'm going to start recommending these different advances and different initiatives that we can focus on and go towards as a business. You just started to do it. And
Hmm.
I'm going to guess that you weren't paid to necessarily put your foot forward. You weren't paid any more to do that. You were paid to do your job, but you decided to do more, and you decided to lead by example.
Right, right. And that's, when I started, it was in that customer support role, and we were growing, and we needed more employees to fill those roles. And it was only about 8 months in, and now we needed someone to lead that team. And so
Mm.
that was my first step into leadership, was managing that group of support people.
What was it like to be 8 months in, you were customer support, and they come to you and say, "Terry, there's this opportunity that came up. We'd love you to do it." I'm sure it probably looked different than that, but what did the transition feel like from supporting just customers to
Hmm.
now being in a role to support your entire team and
Right.
work to lead them?
I mean, it was a challenging transition, but it was something that I was really excited about. And you doubt yourself a little bit because you're not sure if you could really handle what was expected of you. But I just knew that I wanted to do more. I wanted to make things better. And so being able to lead a team of people that we could do that together, it was still going to be us as a team, but it was me just taking on more of the higher level, process, the team dynamics and pulling that kind of together. But it was also making sure that I wasn't, dictating responsibilities to people, that we were really talking as a team to try to solve problems together.
Yeah. What would you say, because you said it was a challenging transition?
Mhm.
I'll ask this in two different ways. What would you say was the most challenging piece of the transition from being an employee to being a leader? And also, we could ask it in this way: if you could go back to the Terry who was about to move into that leadership role, what advice, even if it was just one piece of advice, what
Mm,
advice would you give to that version of you?
yeah. Well, I think the big challenge is trying to convince people that you can do it, who are your peers. They've been your peers for a long time, and there's doubt. So you're almost always proving yourself. So that's always the challenge. Um, I think if I were to go back, and this is something that I worked on so long through my career, is just listening more, instead of trying to solve a problem right away. Um, and so I think it's, really listening to what people are saying to you before you're just jumping to solve it. And then also over communicating what is happening, because people will always speculate, or they're always going to assume something that might not really be the case. But if you don't communicate and over communicate to them, that's what's going to happen. And so I think it would be, really going back and just listening, and then over communicating really what the message is.
Yeah, I agree completely. I
Mhm,
think it was the same challenge for me when I moved into my first leadership position, like my first real leadership position.
mhm,
I was instructed by my leader, because I was like, "What do I do first?" And he's like, "Well, first we'll have the celebration where you are announced as the leader." And he's like, "But after that," he's like, "it's not the title that's going to give you that gravitas. It's not the title
mhm,
that's going to give you that influence." He said, "It's your actions." And I said, "Okay,
mhm,
cool. Well, I'm asking you, like, what should I do?" And he's like, "Well, what I'd recommend is exactly what you said, right? It's listening more." He
mhm,
instructed that I go to each of the 17 people who were on my direct team and
mhm,
ask them, like, what is the best way that I can support you as your new leader? And also being transparent, like, hey, I realized that I was your peer for the last 2 or 3 years, and I still am your peer. Like, I'm still
mhm,
here with you, working with you. I'm here to help you. Like, what is the best way that I can help you? What are your driving factors? Like, what is it that you want right now from your job or your career or your role? And
mhm,
and and actually, and I could probably go back and listen even more than I did. Like, I took notes and everything, but I was a young kid, like,
mhm,
so if I could go back, I'd probably even do a better job. But that idea of just listening to people
mhm.
is so
Right,
powerful, because
right.
we're so used to just talking, 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 kind of like what I'm doing right now, and just
Well,
listening instead.
yeah, and you hit on it, being transparent. And, I always, the saying is fake it till you make it. I really don't love that statement,
Same.
because I think people see right through that. So I think it's just being really open, and, being able to share where things really are. And you're right, asking the right questions, and really finding out what's their concerns.
I think it's important also to kind of like, I'm just from a curiosity standpoint, you're 30 at this point, and you join a startup with 8 people. Like, that's riskier than going to work for a Fortune 500 company or even a Fortune 1000 company. You
Mhm.
decided to take a risk and work with a smaller team. Like, why did you make that decision? Like, what did you want from your life at that stage?
I mean, to be completely honest, I wanted a less commute. I mean, here I am, right? I'm in my early 30s, and, I'm driving, a couple hours a day to get somewhere. And I really, really did like my past, my position. I loved the people that I worked with. And it was really just a decision based on my personal well-being. It was stressful. I mean, everybody knows when you're driving in traffic every day and it's a long period of time. Sometimes it would take me 2 hours to get home,
Mm,
depending on if it's a Friday or if it's raining, the traffic. And that was something that it wasn't good for me personally. And so, but yes, driving or moving to a startup is definitely a lot riskier because you really don't know what to expect. But for me, I also felt like it was exciting.
mm.
And that was something that I was really drawn to.
Yeah, and it's important to point out too that you knew what you didn't want, and
Hmm.
what you didn't want, probably just from experience of you doing it, was that sometimes 2-hour trip home, because then you're on the road for 3 or 4 hours. There's a lot of
Hmm.
people right now who make a daily commute. Like my neighbor literally makes like an hour and a half commute, and he doesn't complain about it, but he
Hmm.
brings it up a lot, which tells me that that's not
Hmm.
something that he wants. And what you said is important. You got to the point where you're like, I am going to do something about this rather than continue to talk about it. And
Hmm.
you did. And it created an opportunity for you. And it's the reason why we're having this conversation right now. We probably wouldn't have met if you didn't make the decision to work with
Right.
Informs.
Hmm.
And then you moved into leadership with them, and for a long time, you were a leader with them. What
Hmm.
did it look like when you then transitioned into, like, an executive leadership
Hmm.
role with this company, and then you moved
Yeah.
towards the sale of this company? Like, what did you learn? What was that opportunity like? I know that's kind of a loaded question, but maybe you
Hmm.
can paint the picture.
Right. I mean, it wasn't long after I started that when I became a manager of the team, that's where you really have the opportunity to make change. And I just was constantly wanting to make changes and wanting to improve things and help the business grow. And we knew that we as managers knew that we needed someone kind of in that second role because our CEO was sort of managing multiple people. And I did not expect him to say, I want that to be you. It was more of, I'm thinking an outside person was coming in. And then he presented that opportunity to me. And the challenging thing for me was obviously I didn't think I had the experience to move into that position. But I took on that challenge, obviously. But there were people who did not think that I could do it, which was a constant battle for a while. But, it was something where I was going to take on that very difficult challenge. And I did things for myself. I joined a leadership training group. I also joined a CEO advisory group, which also allowed COOs in the group. And it's something that I still participate in today. And these are areas for me to be able to really just talk to other people who are in similar roles. The other thing that I seeked out was getting a mentor. We had a customer of ours who, it was a woman, CEO of a company here in our area. And I went to visit her one day just as on a customer visit. And I just listened to her talk. And I just was amazed by her. She I don't know. She just was very dynamic, and I really enjoyed our conversation. And we left that meeting, and I reached out to her and I said, would you be open to mentoring me or at least meeting with me for coffee once in a while? And she jumped on it in a heartbeat. And
Wow.
we stayed connected for a long time. And she really, really was a big part of, I feel like, my success.
Wow. What
Hmm.
a cool story that is.
Hmm.
You kind of answered another question I had in there, which was, you mentioned you had that inner voice when you were going to make that next step of, can I do this? Is this the right time for me? You've got obstacles and friction with some other
Mhm.
people that you're working with, like, oh, is Terry really going to be able to do this? And a
Mhm.
lot of that isn't them saying, is this person going to be able to do this? But once you continue to rise up and rise up and rise up, other people who want to be where you are going to be envious. They're going to be
Mhm.
jealous. They want to be there. And rather than look in and ask, what can I do in order to improve my skills to the point where I need them to be in order to make this jump and find the mentor, which you didn't find until you started joining these clubs and these different initiatives.
Mhm.
If you look at it from that perspective, you're able to quell that inner voice that's telling you that you can't do it. But
Mhm.
some people, and it's going to happen to anyone listening right now, people are going to say, I want to do that. Why is this person in that role? But you can look at it from one or two ways. You can blame, or you can ask, what can I do in order to grow into this new opportunity in front of me?
Mhm. Right. Right.
Now, when you have that inner voice come back, because we all have it, right? Like, am I a fraud? Am I an imposter? And, some might have it worse than others. For some, it might just be, oh, I wonder if I did a great job on that presentation on the Zoom call, or I could have done this differently. I could have done that differently. Like, am I doing the right thing? Do you have like a way that you soothe that inner voice, or block it out, or listen to it and use it? Like, how do you work with your own inner voice even now? Like, 'cause I mean, now
Mhm.
you have different challenges as a
Mhm.
business owner, creating new products for the market, redeveloping products. Like, what do you do for yourself now in order to kill that inner voice?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think you kind of just have to think of it as let's take one day at a time. But it's kind of think about what it is. Like what is the issue at hand that's bugging you or that's in your head? And is there a way to solve it or to not take it so serious? Think about it. Is this really something that is that terrible, or is it something that is, that I really need to worry about? I think worry and stress is something that gets everyone, gets us all, down. Or I tend to take walks, especially if there's something really bothering me in my brain and I can't get rid of it. I will go and put my earbuds in and I just go for a long walk, and I feel like that sometimes soothes me. I also listen to books through Audible, and I think it's looking at it and just really saying, is this something that I really need to spend time stressing about?
It sounds to me like you're constantly looking to learn, constantly looking to grow, which
Mhm.
improves your confidence. People always ask, "Well,
Mhm.
how can I be more confident?" And then I ask them, "Well, how are you growing on a daily basis?"
Mhm.
Like, you're taking walks, you're reading, you're listening to books. But what I really like about what you just said is, when you're feeling that stress and anxiety, one, you didn't say this, but it has to happen in order for step 2 to come into play. You notice it and you're
Mhm.
aware of it. And you
Mhm.
say to yourself, I'm feeling stressed right now. Even if it's a quick thought or a quick awareness, you are aware of it. Some people, and this was me back in the day, and still sometimes to this day, we go through it subconsciously and we go through it blind almost.
Mhm.
And we're just a product of our environment at that point. But you're aware of it and you notice it. But then you don't just, what's the word? You don't just incapacitate it or drown it out with other things. Because if we think about, okay, what are some ways that a lot of people calm their stress down? Well, you might watch TV, or you might start scrolling through social media, or you might do drugs, or you might drink, or whatever it is, which I guess is a drug. Like, that's only helping the symptoms.
Mhm.
Right, but what you just said on the spot, which was super cool because it's very deep, is look at the source of the problem and
Mhm.
ask yourself, okay, well, what's the source of my anxiety? Oh, okay, I've got this big presentation coming up with a panel of executives. Okay, so what can you do now in order to prepare better for that conversation? Maybe it's going on a walk and listening to an audiobook on how to deliver a presentation, or something that helps you to feel confident. So
Mhm.
finding that source rather than medicating the symptoms
Mhm.
is huge when it comes to anxiety, stress, anything that holds you back in that way.
Mhm. Right, right, exactly. And of course I have stresses, I mean, going from being in a, a company, you're stressed out about going through an acquisition, and then you now what, and then you're starting a startup, and then there's all those transition times, and now we have a new product, and you know there's a ton of stress. I have 3 boys, there's stress. I worry about them, but yeah, I mean, you have to figure out how to come back from that, and
There's so many directions we could go
I
just
know.
because you did all of this while also raising 3 boys, and
Mhm.
we're not gonna go in that direction, and people are probably like, "Oh my god, I wanna know how she did that," but I wanna ask you a lot of other things, which so
Yeah.
just incredibly impressive, just the journey we covered so far, and I know people have already took something out of this, but I wanted to specifically ask you about the time and the chapter of Informs when you
Mhm.
knew that the goal was to sell, and
Mhm.
you knew that you were about to be, quote unquote, jobless, but because
Mhm.
of a good reason to be jobless, right? The company was going to be sold. Like, what was this chapter like, learning
Mhm.
and observing the sale of a business that you've been with for a long time?
Right.
And for those entrepreneurs listening who are in that chapter of they're ready to sell, like, what advice do you have for them?
Yeah. Um, I mean, that I was always part of the conversations on when the best time was going to be. And we started hearing, I think from the entrepreneur side, when is the best time to sell? For us, it was, we were hearing a lot of changes that were happening within we were in the association space. So there was a lot of consolidation of companies. And there was just signs, there was signs that were telling us. We had been working with a broker for a long time, more from advice and, kind of advising us of the industry. And at that time, we started just hearing more from him. And, so we had to kind of look at what was the next steps. We had the opportunity to stay, both myself and the CEO could have stayed on, but we wanted to decide what was next for us. And so, we just felt like it was a good time, based on, what we were seeing in the sales process, and, the competitors and things like that. And so then we started through the process. You prepare for months and months. You need to make sure that you have your all of, the thing is, I would say this is something to start preparing for now, is all of the contracts and the documentation and everything that you do within your business today, making sure that that's all up to date, where things are. That is not something that we did. And when we went through the due diligence, it was, hunting down contracts. Our contracts were all different because we had different types of customers. And so it was just a lot of work and prep to go through that. We had never had a financial audit. So we had to go through a full financial audit. So these are just things that, you really think about, and you want to prepare for. And then moving into developing a pitch deck, which is months and months of work as well. So it's making sure you're ready for it. And then, being prepared for what happens in the end.
Yeah, I love that. That
Mhm.
reminds me of the Stephen Covey quote, "Begin with the end in mind."
Mhm.
Right? And I
Mhm.
think a lot of people listening might hear that and be like, "Okay, like, I can prepare for this now, even though this might be 10, 15 years in the
Sure.
future," and
Mhm.
start documenting. Like, even let's say those listening are content creators and or you're a coach or whatever it is, your podcast. You can
Mhm.
literally do, okay, when you what's step 1 of the podcast, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. Literally have all the steps down so that one day you can give it to somebody. And
Mhm.
after just a little bit of training, they're able to take on this podcast and take over the business. And obviously, the
Mhm.
podcast is one element. And those listening, you might not be professional system and process creators, and that's completely okay. Like, I interviewed a guy recently, Frank Salas from Salas Staffing, and he specializes in helping businesses create systems and processes. So you don't have to be the one doing this last minute. You can either
Mhm.
start doing it now, or when you are in the midst of the thoughts of, I think I'm going to sell in this next amount of years, bring on a professional who you can give it to, who can help you
Mhm.
do all of those different things.
Sure. And you never know when the opportunity presents itself. Someone might approach you and you might think, oh, no, not for 10 years. But if there's an opportunity that is at your doorstep and too good to be true kind of opportunity, you want to be ready.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point, and that's
Mhm.
a beautiful situation to be in too.
Right.
That brings its own stresses, but again, good stresses. What's life
Right.
without some stress, you know?
Mhm.
So now you're in this period of time
Mhm.
between Informs and what is now Insight Path.
Mhm.
So how did you know that you wanted to start your own business? Because that's a different beast, right? That's a
Mhm.
whole different journey. Like, did you know while you were still with Informs? And like, what did that period in between look like for you?
Yeah, so we definitely knew because the CEO is now my current business partner. We knew that we were going to start something new. Um, we just didn't know what that was, and so we were really trying to just come up with ideas. And there's another stress for you. And so once the business sold, it was in October, and it was a, a very emotional time for both of us, because you're walking away from something that you helped build.
Mhm.
um, but we took a little time off, and it wasn't long. It was about 2 weeks where we
Wow.
we were like, well, we'll just take. Well, we had originally thought maybe we'd take a couple of months, and it just we just really were ready to move on and see what was
Yeah, you
next.
had momentum too.
Exactly. So we started meeting again it was in November, and really coming up with ideas. And we had started advising businesses. So we had become an advisory board for a couple of small businesses who were needing some leadership help and coaching. So we started out there. And just through that process, we started doing some customer discovery on our idea, which was originally Insight Path. Started out as a customer discovery tool, which was being able to go out and um, ask questions to find out if an idea was even worth a business.
Mm,
And then it kind of evolved into a customer interview platform. And we officially had launched that in July of 2020, which, as everyone knows, was the midst of the pandemic,
yes,
and COVID.
and that's when I discovered Insight Path.
Right.
S so how did you know what you wanted the first product to be? Because there's a lot of people
hmm
listening who they might be in the corporate world, but they wanna start their own business, and they might be on the cusp of doing that, but they
hmm
don't quite know what the product is because it sounds to me like this idea of a customer interviewing platform is different. It's slightly different than what you did with Inform. So how did you
hmm
both decide, "Okay, this is gonna be the product that we begin with this new opportunity?"
Right. So we had been talking to a ton of entrepreneurs, and one of the biggest questions we would ask them was, what are you doing for customer discovery? Who are you talking to? What are people saying about your idea or your product? And so many people were not doing it. It was difficult to do. They just really had no data around it. And so that's really what sparked the idea of having these sort of conversations to uncover if your idea is even worth building or pursuing. And so that's really where the idea came from. And then that's when we launched that technology to do that. But we quickly found out once we launched it that it just was not the best fit for the market.
And you knew that based on sales.
Knew that based on sales. We had originally targeted, entrepreneurs. But you really have to think about, they don't have a lot of money at this time to spend on new technology and new tools. And organizations were losing customers, employees were getting laid off, and it wasn't a time for them to say, oh, let's go find out more issues about what our product is, or services, from our customers. They needed positive, they didn't need the negative. And
Yeah.
so we just were seeing that it was just not working. And from that is actually where we are today. And I'm glad that's where we started, because this has really brought us to where we are with our new video marketing platform.
I'm so excited to talk about that. Now,
Mhm.
this moment though that you realized, okay, this first product that we've created isn't working the way we want it. I think it's really important what we're glossing over here, which is the fact that so many people, including myself, like as an example, I created my first ever product was technically my book, but my first real product that I put on the market, ran advertisements to, was a goal setting course.
Mhm.
And this product, I didn't even do the due diligence that you did, not even close. Like you went out and you asked the market, what is it that you need? And that's how you came up with this customer interviewing platform. But I created the first product based on what I wanted, which was, okay, what did 21-year-old Brandon want at this
Mhm.
time that he just couldn't find, which was a goal setting course.
Mhm.
And I created this goal setting course and I'm thinking, oh my God, so many people are going to love this. So many people are going to buy it. And I launched it and no one bought it. And I
Mhm.
was like, ooh, this is not good. I'm like a week into this. People are asking me, how is your course doing? And it's like, well, the course is cool. And I was just hoping they wouldn't ask, like, how many people have joined. And I was like, literally nobody. And it got better because I started to fine tune it and then do what you did, which was actually ask people what they wanted to see. And I included those different modules and I renamed it. And now it's a successful course. But we can become emotionally attached to our product.
Mhm.
And when it doesn't work, I know I took it personally. And it was difficult for me to pivot and try something different and give people what they actually
Mhm.
wanted. So,
Mhm.
was that a challenge to go from this first product to then going back to the drawing board in a way
Mhm.
and creating something that was totally different, which is now video request?
It was. And in like you said, it's a tough pill to swallow as an entrepreneur to realize you failed. And that's really what it was. It just was not a fit. But I think it's so important to know quickly, and if they what's the saying, fail quickly, because the more and more money you put into something that's just not going to work, it's time and effort and obviously resources. Um, so it was difficult, but it was something that we knew we needed to do. And we did go back to the drawing board. We went back and spent months doing more customer discovery. The reason we ended up going the video route was we were doing everything on video already. We're all on Zoom, we're having these conversations. And it really did start from the old product, where it was you're interviewing your customers to find out the bad stuff. Well, what if you
Mm.
ask them, what do they love about you? And what if you could clip that video and create a customer testimonial out of it, something amazing? And that's where it really started. We were like, well, what if we could do this in a video platform where you're asking the good stuff? You're requesting them to say, hey, what do you love about working with us? And then this is stuff that you can utilize and use. And really, that's how we started down that path.
Wow, that's powerful.
Mhm.
So I am a personal user of video request for those listening. And this, like, that's not the reason why I had Terry on the show. We already planned to have Terry on the show before we even became a user of video request. But we
Mhm.
were we had a corporate event coming up and there was going to be about 30 people at the event. And we thought to ourselves, okay, how can we collect testimonials for this event? And the first idea was, okay, we'll ask everyone to take out their phone and shoot a quick video on their phone. But then we're like, oh my God, how would we feel if we were at an event and they're like, okay, take your phone out now and shoot a quick video next to this guy you just met and you're nervous on video. You don't want to be on video. And we're like, okay, that's not going to work. And then we thought, what if we put our videographer out in the hallway and sent people out and he video recorded them saying what they took away from the event? And we're like, no, that would take way too much time and it's going to be weird and it's going to feel forced. So
Mhm.
then Christine Smith, who introduced me to Terry, said, oh my God, we need to use video requests. And I was like, what's that? And she's like, well, it's so cool. We can literally send these guys a link that they go to. And from this link, they can even type in a testimonial, or when they go to the link, it's already on the video, it's already on the page. They can do it wherever they want to do it, and they can make it as long as they want to make it, even if it's like 30 seconds, which a lot of ours were. And I was like, this is amazing. So we sent everyone the link afterwards, and we got a ton of awesome video testimonials, guys. Like, they're all branded with our branding. We were able to download it directly from the platform. It was super easy to create a new project. So I am a personal user of this, and I think it's so important for other coaches, other consultants, anyone who's customer facing, who's growing a service business of any kind, even if you have physical products, like just sending this link to your customers, even if you don't incentivize it in any way, like
Mhm.
people who love your services and who love your products, they want to help you, and they will leave a testimonial and let them know how it's helped you. Just like I'm doing right now for video requests. Like, I'm not being paid to say any of that. It made my life easier. It made our lives easier. So just an incredible platform that you've made, Terry. And I'm
Thank you.
curious, like, first of all, where can people learn more about video requests? Because they're probably saying right now, oh my God, I want to check this out for me in my own business.
Sure. Yeah, you can go to our website. It's insightpath.io. And we offer a 14-day free trial. And just like you said, thanks so much for that too, Brandon. The thing that's nice is that there's no uploading or downloading. It's easy on both the user and the person that's leaving the video. But we have a built-in editor, and we host it, and you can easily share it on your social sites or on your website because it's all integrated. So that's what's, it's really an inexpensive tool that helps you and brings a lot of value.
Guys, it's a no-brainer. Like, it is inexpensive, it is easy to use, and it's like that because Terry knows exactly who she's looking to reach. She knows who her customer is, and her goal is to help you serve your customers in that same way. But I don't want to take your goal or your mission out of your own mouth. I'd like you to tell me, like, what is your vision and your mission now with video request, having repurposed the first product into this one, which is
Mhm.
working and it's helping people? Like, what is your mission now with what you're
Yeah.
doing with Insight Path?
Yeah, the mission of this product is to just bring as much value to our customers, making sure that it's something that is incorporated into their process. It's easy, they don't have to think about it. It's just something that benefits them. It's also not just for collecting videos, but it's also for creating your own videos. So if you're doing marketing or even training, we even have customers that do it for sales. So if you're sending a proposal and you want to do a video email, you can even do that. So we're trying to think of ways that this platform will provide value in different areas within the organization. And it's bringing multiple things together, multiple tools together into one platform in a really inexpensive way.
I absolutely love it. And guys, you know this, like, when I'm around anyone who's Gen Z or anyone who's even in their early 20s now, because I'm like in between millennial and Gen Z, they're all using video and they're all
Mhm.
using the voice message. Like, I started using voice message and I'm like, oh my God, I'm ahead of the curve here thinking I'm cool. But everyone I'm connecting with who's like 18 to 22, that's just what they do. Like, they
Mhm.
don't text anymore. They're talking, they're using video. My coach, when he enrolled me at the beginning of last year, he sent me a video message with a recap of what we talked about, thanking me for joining his mastermind and his group. And I adopted that and I used that. And Insight Path just makes it so much easier to do all of that. So enlist these different tools into your arsenal, guys. There's going to be links right in the description here. Insightpath.io. Again, for you listeners, insightpath.io. But I also I implore you to go to LinkedIn and follow Terry, because Terry's constantly posting things. And Terry, you were super helpful, even like, you're running a company. And I remember we needed something, like we needed help with something. And you're like, yeah, I'll hop on the call with you. And you don't get that from a
Mhm.
lot of these other companies. Like, you're not going to, and I'm not saying to everyone listening that you're going to get Terry on a call, like, maybe, right, depending on what you need, but you
Mhm.
were just super helpful, even though you're in a position and role where that's not the most important thing for you to be doing, but you wanted to help us and you
Mhm.
wanted to make it easy for us. So I thank you and I acknowledge you for that as well.
Thanks.
I have one final question for you.
Sure.
And again, I selfishly want to know, with all that you have in the experience of moving into leadership and selling the first business and then moving into your own business, if you could go back to Terry in 2005,
Mm,
now with all of this knowledge, and you could just not even give her advice, it could be advice, but if you could just say anything to 2005 Terry,
mhm.
what would you tell her?
Oh, I think it's don't let people tell you you can't do something. Put your mind to it. You can do it. Seek out the answers. Take the initiative. Um, worry a little less. Try to be more positive. I think the worrying and the stress is something that try to think of ways that you can overcome that. Um, but yeah, I think it's, just don't let people tell you you can't do it.
That's beautiful.
Mhm.
Perfect way to end this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. It was an absolute pleasure, Terry.
Thank you so much.
Wow. No matter who you are, no matter what business you're in, no matter what company you work for, this episode was absolutely incredible. I took away a ton of nuggets of information myself, just in terms of creating the systems and creating the processes, because we hear it all the time, but we don't always do it. From creating the vision in mind for what you even want to accomplish in 15 years. Like Terry started with Informs in 2005. They sold 12 years later that she was with this business, rising up through the ranks. She gave advice on how to find those answers you need. She gave advice on how to solve the root cause of the stress and the worry you're experiencing. So this has been a mix of like personal advice and business wisdom. Like if you take anything from this, and I sure hope you do, I'm definitely going to rewatch this one, then share this show with just one other person who this conversation will help. You're the reason that we've grown the way we have, because you are the best part of the team. As always, thank you for watching and tuning in. And until we talk again next time, continue to be better.